voters, not one of them was undecided.
Wow.
Not one.
Not one. And headlines come and go, but let me tell you this. Support for former President Trump is real and resilient. I encounter that everywhere I went. And that's something the Harris campaign knows, recognizes. The fact in Michigan. For this election, would you say your mind is made up?
Yes.
And that is?
Trump.
Okay. Are you a previous Trump supporter?
The first year he won in 2016, I was not.
Did you vote for Hillary?
I did vote for Hillary, but I
Okay.
cried when she did not win.
Okay. Then what happened?
And then I just felt like he did a good job. I liked the fact that he was not a politician.
You believe you were better off 4 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Small business owner Andrew Singrati backs Trump, too.
How will you feel if Trump doesn't win, Diane?
Petrified.
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 Of what may be happening?
All the illegals coming through, they're going to make it up here to Michigan.
What is going on at the border scares me to death. I just hold my breath every day hoping that somebody that I love doesn't get hurt.
Really? You think about it that much?
Yes.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to talk about Kamala Harris, who is losing key support in the Democrat Party. Okay, the traditional Democrat Party coalition is falling apart before our eyes. Okay, and it's not just along racial lines. We're going to talk a little bit more about that some more in this video. But yesterday, we talked about the Hispanics, okay? The Hispanics, the Latinos, they are abandoning the Democrat Party en masse. And let's just say that the mainstream liberal media, specifically outlets like MSNBC, they're not handling this too well, okay? There's a full-blown meltdown. There's full-blown panic over the Latinos that are abandoning the Democrat Party and voting for Trump. Because apparently, if you are a Latino and you want to vote for Trump, you're doing so because you want to be white.
The 4 years he was in office, we were doing good, absolutely good. You know, Kamala, she's already in office and ain't done. And, you know, I mean, there was more work too. We were able to afford things.
What are the issues that move you towards Trump and move you and your community towards Donald Trump?
Well, mainly is the transgender and also the abortion right.
And you would say most of your community is choosing Donald Trump because of that?
Yes. The majority, yes.
Trump's rehashing of his race-baiting rhetoric comes as a new NBC News, Telemundo, and CNBC poll shows that Harris has a 14-point lead over Trump among Latino voters, 54% to Trump's 40%. And yes, that's a big lead, but it's a shrinking one, down from what might seem like a big lead. It's a shrinking one because President Biden had a 36-point lead in 2020, and Hillary Clinton had a 50-point lead in 2016. Why is that? Why is the Democratic share of the Latino vote shrinking?
And what I said to you when we asked the question was, Latinos want to be white. They want to be with the cool kids. They want to be, I'm asking Latinos all the time, and they just say, well, ese Donald Trump es tan buen negociante. He's such a good businessman. It's like, no, he's not. He had bankruptcies. But they don't want to be identified with all of those other immigrants that Donald Trump speaks so badly of, including me as a Mexican immigrant. So they're like, let's be with him. But those numbers, they could cost Kamala Harris the election. Everything that I've been saying that Latinos could push her over the top, these are the numbers that could also take her down. I.e., they believe that she is a communist, that she is a socialist. There are these memes going around with her dressed in a Mao Zedong suit with a cap that has a hammer and sickle. So that's what you're up against right now. And frankly, that's something that she has to address, not Governor Walz. She ultimately has to address this because these images that they have created are actually taking off.
That's the thing that's what I find so frightening.
Yeah, so I found it hilarious how a Latino woman who appears to be white, right, is talking about how Latinos want to be white when being Latino is not like a race, right? Like that, like you can be an Afro-Latino, you can be an Asian Latino, you can be a white Latino, right? Like a lot of Latinos actually identify as white. Okay, so saying that Latinos want to be white as if being Latino is distinctly different than being white, right? Like Latino is a racial category. Really, it's just an ignorant thing to say on national television. But then again, it is MSNBC. So, I mean, it's not like the standards are very high for journalism, news, facts, things like that, right? Common sense. So, again, this is probably par for the course when it comes to the commentary on MSNBC, okay? But when you see MSNBC having a full-blown meltdown, right, over the fact that Latinos are leaving the Democrat Party and they're becoming Republicans, yeah, you know that this is real, okay? There are some polls that actually show Trump winning the Latino/Hispanic vote, and that would be absolutely devastating for Kamala Harris if that materializes in the election. I mean, I'm hoping that it does, right? I'm actually very proud of the Latinos and the Hispanics for doing what the blacks, okay, failed to do, which is to leave the Democrat Party and to actually, I don't know, have some political diversity, right? So with that being said, that takes me to this video right here from CNN that highlights other traditional Democrat Party voter groups or coalitions also abandoning the Democrat Party. Again, this is fascinating because what we're seeing is a historic shift in support away from Democrats towards Republicans, towards Trump. And it seems like the Democrat Party is collapsing before our eyes. So without further ado, let's get into it.
The points that just jump off the screen should set off sirens. All right, this is union households. This is Democratic margin in presidential election. It ain't what it used to be. You know, you go back to 1992, Bill Clinton won that union vote by 30 points. Hillary Clinton only won it by 12 points back in 2016. That was the lowest mark for a Democrat since 1984, Mondale versus Reagan. But look at where Kamala Harris is today. She's only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation, 10 points off the mark of Joe Biden, who of course won 4 years ago, was sort of that union guy, Union Joe, right? Won it by 19 points. She's 10 points off his mark, and the worst in a generation if this, in fact, holds, Sarah.
It is interesting to note that the difference between this, and Biden still won.
Still won.
But those numbers are significantly down. All right, talk to me about manual labor, those folks who went to trade schools.
Yeah, those folks who use their hands. I think a lot of people oftentimes conflate the union vote with those who use their hands. Mike Rowe, of course, has been arguing more people should go to trade schools, more people should get a vocational degree. Look at this margin. This, to me, oh boy, does this tell you about the state of our politics now versus back in the early 1990s. Margin among vocational and trade school grads in pre-election polling. Bill Clinton was leading that vote over George H.W. Bush by 7 points. Look at where Donald Trump is today over Kamala Harris, a 31-point advantage. When I think people think of the working class, they think of people who use their hands, and we know that Donald Trump has been going after that vote, and he is in a very strong position, more so perhaps than any other bloc. The folks who go to trade school, vocational school, that has moved from being a core Democratic group to now being a core group of Donald Trump's massive amount of support among the working class.
Now, I mean, here's the thing, right? I'm not surprised by this, and the reason why is because the core demographic behind the trade school grads and the union workers are men, okay? Men, especially young men, they are now becoming more conservative, okay? They're now shifting over to the Republican Party. They're leaving the Democrat Party. They realize that, hey, the Democrats are not the party of men, okay? At least not straight men and men with normal testosterone levels, okay? It's just not the party for us, okay? And because of that, again, you have groups like unions that traditionally have been Democrat, but also at the same time, they're largely, you know, a lot of men, right? And we're talking about more of the auto unions, the trade unions, stuff like that, right? Yeah, this is why they're now supporting Trump, because you have a bunch of men that are now saying, hey, well, the Republican Party is basically the only party that serves our interest, okay? Democrats are actively against us. They're actively trying to undermine us. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of this shifting that we're seeing here, where traditional Democrat Party voters are now voting Republican, despite some of the political ideology in which, you know, Republicans have not necessarily been union friendly, right? But nowadays, again, that's changing because Trump is talking more protectionist when it comes to trade policies, okay? Especially when it comes to the Green New Scam, which definitely hurts the auto industry workers. And things like that, again, are the reason why you're seeing things kind of shift, right? And that is what is being displayed here in this polling here from CNN.
All right, let's move on to voters of color. And there's a very specific group that you looked at. And what are you seeing there?
Yeah, you know, we have been noting on this program, right, that Donald Trump seems to have been having some real impact among voters of color, getting into that traditional Democratic support. And I was very interested to see this because we're talking about the working class, right? So this is the margin among non-college graduates, all right, the voters of color. You go back 4 years ago, look at that. Joe Biden won that group by 45 points. Look at where Kamala Harris's support is today. She's still leading amongst that group, but that lead is down 17 points to just 28 points. And I will note that the margin among voters of color who actually graduate college has only been changed by 5 points. 5 points compared to 4 years ago. The reason Donald Trump is doing so well amongst voters of color is because he has really gone in and grabbed a lot of voters that he didn't previously have among those who didn't graduate college. And this is part of a larger trend that we're seeing throughout our politics era, in which Republicans, specifically Donald Trump, is doing very, very well among working class voters, whether they were in unions, whether they went to trade school, or whether they're voters of color. The fact is Donald Trump seems to have gone into a hotbed of traditional Democratic support and made a lot of movement in ways I don't think a lot of people would have thought when he went down that escalator just back in 2015.
All right, Harry Ensign, bringing us.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really not that surprising considering the fact that, you know, Trump at one point was a Democrat, okay, and, you know, he still has some leanings, right, in regards to some of his economic policies that are more traditionally Democratic. Again, this is why, again, he's more protectionist when it comes to trade policies and stuff like that. And that's being reflected in these polls, right? So when you talk about these non-college voters, right, whether they are of color or whatever, right, doesn't matter. Everybody's been impacted by inflation, right? Everybody has been negatively impacted by the economic policies of the Biden-Harris administration, okay? And the people that have been impacted the most, okay, are people who are working class and middle class, okay? Because that is who inflation negatively affects the most, okay? And that's a problem. So that's why you're seeing those voters shift over to Trump, because they know that under Trump's economy, everything was more affordable, okay? There were more opportunities. Like I told you guys before in past videos, Trump was getting people off the system, man, okay? I mean, you had millions of people getting off of food stamps, right? You had home ownership rates skyrocketing. People were building wealth, okay? And that came because of Trump's policies, and they weren't handouts, okay? He basically said, listen, I'm going to let you keep more of your own money, right? That's basically what the policy was. We're going to give you a tax cut. And ultimately, at the end of the day, regardless of what Democrats say about how only the rich benefited under Trump, no, everybody benefited. Everybody benefited. This is why even those that are, you know, at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, even those, like, this is why they're supporting Trump, right? Because they understand that their lives were better under Trump. And that's what people want to get back to, right? So, again, you're seeing the traditional Democrat Party coalition of voters, they're leaving the party. They're abandoning the party, and they're running to the Republican Party. They're running towards Trump. I mean, really, they're running towards Trump more than anything. This is only something that can happen under Trump, right? A traditional Republican would not be able to pull off what Trump is pulling off in regards to destroying the Democrat Party coalition, okay? But regardless, with these type of numbers, this is terrible, right? It's really hard to imagine Kamala Harris actually winning when you have these groups of voters that traditionally vote Democrat leaving the party en masse, right? I just cannot see how is it she can win this election if these numbers are accurate, right? I think the numbers that are probably inaccurate are the ones that have Kamala Harris winning in the overall polling, because I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter who it is. Whether it's Don Lemon, CBS, whoever, right? Like, even me personally, when you're on the street and you're talking to normal, everyday people, it is hard to find somebody that's actually voting for Kamala Harris. The vast majority of people are voting Trump, man. I'm so serious. It doesn't matter who you talk to, okay? It doesn't matter. So, I'm feeling excited right now, right? I feel real good right now going into October, and I'm just hoping that this debate tomorrow between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, I'm really hoping that that is the nail in the coffin of the Kamala campaign, because I think that J.D. Vance is going to do a much better job of making the case to working class voters than Tim Walz. Although Tim Walz was picked for that reason, right, to appeal to those white voters in the Midwest, right? I actually think that J.D. Vance is going to do a much better job of articulating why the Trump economic policies were better, okay, and they will be better in the future. And I am really hoping, right? I am really hoping that JD Vance utterly destroys Tim Walz so badly in this debate that even the mainstream level media won't be able to spin it, right? Like what happened to Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden destroyed himself so bad that even the media couldn't spin it, right? I'm hoping that JD Vance does the same thing to Tim Walz. We will see. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.